Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for your insight today and your testimony. I appreciate that. General Keane, you talked earlier about the way that we're buying drones, for instance, right now, that we've got maybe, we can buy 100 drones when we need 20,000 drones. And I guess I think of this, and my colleagues have talked about this a little bit, but the threat of lower cost, easily attainable weapons like drones or cyber warfare that many of our adversaries are using, how do we prevent becoming Goliath in the David versus Goliath with the rock that hits us in the head when we're really thinking that we're invincible in other areas? I guess I'd ask your thoughts on that for both of you. General, or whoever would like to go first.
Sure. Thank you for that question, Congressman. You're exactly right that this is becoming more of a challenge, and we've seen this in particular against our troops in places like Iraq and Syria. And so the U.S. military has had to worry about how to deal with this problem in terms of platforms, to be sure, but also in terms of tactics, techniques, and procedures. And I think that may be part of the secret sauce for how to deal with a counter uncrewed autonomous system challenge.
Yeah, well, the changing character of war has been really quite dramatic. We've not seen anything quite like it. When you look at what is happening in the war in Ukraine, so this is a land-based war, obviously, where that's the focus. Ukraine doesn't really have an air force, but they obviously have what's called a drone corps. They've had to form this because they recognize that to maximize the capability of surveillance and killer drones, it's much better to have it in a separate organization where you have all that innovation together as opposed to being in a tank battalion or an infantry battalion per se. And when you look at the battlefield itself, where the Russians and the Ukrainians are closing, the casualties are enormous. But the reality is that drones are influencing those casualties more than anything else. Artillery still does more casualty producing as a weapon system than anything else. Drones are second. But the drones are give the proponent the ability to see the battlefield and detect movement and capture that movement, so much so that you can put a killing system on it in a matter of seconds. So warfare, as we know it, has dramatically changed. And how best you integrate this capability is really what has taken place right before our eyes. The Russians still have huge tactical problems in terms of their leadership, the willingness of their force to fight, and the skill sets that they have. The Ukrainians are outnumbered, but they have huge amount of creativity and innovation, and they have the will to fight. They're fighting for their families. They're fighting for the preservation of their way of life. But yeah, the technological changes on the battlefield are quite dramatic. Combined arms maneuver, which is what we were seeing a little bit of last year, is hardly taking place at all, because if you move, you get killed. If you're identified, you get killed. And it's really quite remarkable how this change is impacting ground warfare. I've not seen anything like it in some time.
Well, and maybe I would ask this question. I probably don't have time to get much of an answer, but on Iran, very quickly, how do we break this Iranian regime? I remember back during the Obama administration, we had a student uprising, and I think we lost an opportunity there to get rid of this Iranian regime. Are we at a moment here where they're broken, and we could finally push that over the edge and bring freedom and liberty, perhaps, to the people of Iran?
I remember that very well. And that was the summer of 2009, where the people are actually saying, "Where are you?" President Obama, similar to comparing it to Reagan and Poland, in supporting the factory workers. All I can tell you for a fact is that they are in the weakest position they've been in since the regime was formed. And the hostility inside the country is significant. And you know how they solve this. I mean, if the people take to the streets again by the tens of thousands, by the hundreds of thousands, they will go out there and kill as many of them as they possibly can to get them off the streets. Their security services, will unleash themselves on those people.
The gentleman's
I don't know
time has
what it's
expired.
going to take specifically for that kind of implosion to take place. But based on the information I'm receiving, they are much closer to it than they have ever been. I don't know whether we're weeks away or months away. I just don't have those kind of facts.
The gentleman's time has expired. Representative Takuda, Hawaii, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.